And welcome to another episode of A World Gone Mad, Season 1, Episode 32. I'm your host, Jeff Allen Wolf. We have a lot of new listeners joining the podcast today, and I am excited for that. A big welcome to you if it's your first time. And just to let you know, as a newcomer, I'm a veteran television and radio broadcaster with over 40 years' experience. And on my podcast, I comment on national and world news and politics. So welcome aboard. I have so much to talk about today and to unpack, and I want to start off with the following. So get your snacks, get your drink. This is going to be a longer episode than the last two. I owe you one. I would like to talk about the difference between the MAGA supporters and the Democrats, and specifically as it relates to the RNC convention and the DNC convention. And I'm going to do my best. I promise I'm going to try to keep it as objective as possible. Now, I know the RNC convention happened a couple of weeks back, and the DNC was last week. So for disclosure, I watched some of the RNC convention. I couldn't watch all of it. And then I stopped and I had to bang my head against the wall multiple times. I just couldn't take a lot of days from that convention. I apologize. I'm sorry, but at a certain point, enough was enough. Now, with the DNC convention, I actually just watched it in the last 3 days. I recorded it. I tried to stay away from the news. I tried not to hear any commentary from anyone else. And that's hard when you're doing what I'm doing in social media. So I just literally saw 4 days of the DNC in the last 72 hours. So my feelings are still fairly fresh. Let me share with you, give my opinions of what I thought. But first, I'm going to talk about the RNC convention. The mood in the convention center at the RNC was about despair, gloom and doom. There were signs being held up about mass deportations of millions of Americans in our country. It was like sitting in a room in darkness with the shades drawn. If I wanted to be depressed and commit suicide, God forbid, I would hang around these people here at the RNC convention. I have never, since I've been alive on this planet, witnessed such bitterness, such anger, such collective mood of negativity in all my life. I'm not talking about political policies, people. I remember these conventions when there were different opinions. You could say, I don't agree with that policy versus our policy. But this was just dark. And this was just soul crushing. And it was like pulling the plug on any energy I could have in my body, mind, or spirit. How millions of people in this country support Donald Trump with no policies that he has other than revenge, hate everyone, and anything that don't agree with us. Well, after drinking several scotch and sodas for the next 24 hours, getting a good night's sleep, and purging myself of this garbage that came forth from the RNC, I then watched the DNC that I recorded. Considering that it was only a few weeks ago that Joe Biden stepped down, passed the mantle to Kamala Harris, and the scramble to put together something resembling a cohesiveness without rancor, without other candidates challenging for the presidential nominee, the DNC was remarkable. The joyfulness, the uplifting mood, the energy, the lightness, the sheer happiness, and I'm not talking about kumbaya and all that stuff. I'm talking about genuine, honest feelings of neighbors, helping neighbors, wanting to do something for America to bring them out of this darkness and this gloom that Donald has created with our country. It truly was a special and different DNC convention that I've ever seen. I was genuinely surprised and truly uplifted. The speeches throughout the 4 days of the DNC, especially in the last 2 days, were amazing. I'd like to share with you my thoughts about some speeches that stood out that I wanted to give my comment on, and I can't comment on every single speech. We have an hour podcast. I can do it. But in a 30-minute or less podcast, I'm going to hit the highlights for me. Hopefully you'll agree, or maybe I left off some of your favorite speakers. I understand that. So please understand I'm not going to cover everyone. These are just some of the people that I thought needed commenting on and what affected me one way or the other. Jill Biden. She was classy. She was genuine. An enjoyable speech. Exactly what you would expect from the First Lady. Well done. Joe Biden. President Biden was gracious, sincere in passing the torch to Kamala Harris, and we thank him for everything he's done. You know, it's not easy to put yourself in his shoes, to do what he did, to give up power, to swallow your pride. I just say I'm stepping aside because I think it's the most important thing to do at the moment. I'm going to step aside. Think about this. Bravo to you. A tip of my hat to you, Mr. President. That, I don't know anybody I could think of would be able to do that. Oprah Winfrey. Let's talk about Oprah. People have wanted her to run for president for many years, and Oprah did what Oprah does. She uplifted everyone in the room, energized them with powerful thoughts and words. She was Oprah. Well done. Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Governor Whitmer is an intelligent woman, and these are my honest thoughts, so no one attack me who's listening. The speech wasn't as good as I thought she would be. When I see her being interviewed by Rachel Maddow or Lawrence O'Donnell or personal interviews, she's engaging. The speech at the DNC was a little bit dry and forced. Well done, but like I said, they're talking about her as a future president. She needs to work a little bit on her speeches, but still a very good job. Elizabeth Warren. The love for her from the crowd. The crowd showing their genuine support was moving, and obviously moved Elizabeth Warren, brought her to tears. It was a long-lasting tribute before she started speaking. If we want to call it that, Elizabeth was a rock star. Is a rock star. People in that room show their love for her. Her speech was what she always does, down to earth and to the point. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was Bernie. Same typical lines we know of him, but, you know, straightforward. He is who he is. Gave a quality speech about the things we need to do in America. So, as a supporter of Bernie, well done. Ruben Gallego of Arizona, my home state. Mr. Gallego is going up against Carrie Lake. I'd vote for anyone over Carrie Lake. She is a disgusting human being that is so disingenuous, so phony, so hateful, that I hope she does not become senator of my state of Arizona. Ruben Gallego's speech started off slowly. He's new. He's a little bit young. He finally picked up in his speech in the next minute or two, but it wasn't a great speech. It was a good speech. Which brings me to Gabby Giffords. Wow. What could you say about Gabby and what she's gone through many, many years ago, getting shot, having to relearn how to walk, how to talk again, how to function, and watching her husband, Mark Kelly, stand by her at the podium was genuinely moving. A deep, gracious tribute. Giffords, your courage, your endurance, with everything you had to endure these past many years, I bow to the lady. Mark Kelly. Senator Kelly. I originally stated in my Facebook group and on my podcast here that I thought Mark Kelly was going to be picked as the VP running mate for Kamala Harris. Over Josh Shapiro, over everyone else, even when they mentioned Tim Walz, Buttigieg, I thought Mark had the background. Navy pilot, astronaut, his relationship to his wife, Gabby. He had the whole package. He wasn't a bad speaker when I heard him speak. But his DNC speech, though, left me with two thoughts. He's a very good speaker. Mark Kelly, he delivered it. It was a bit dry and cold, which made me then realize with that ding, ding, ding moment, after I heard that Tim Walz was announced over Kelly, I was a bit disappointed. And like I said, Mark Kelly has the package, but I don't know how Mark would do in a debate or on the campaign trail. Personal opinion, not against Mark Kelly, excellent person. I just wasn't thrilled about the speech. Now we come to Josh Shapiro. I heard Josh Shapiro the first time in Pennsylvania, and I'll get to that in a second. But Josh Shapiro at the DNC was interesting. In Pennsylvania, when he introduced Kamala and Tim Walz, he was wow. He was skyrockets in the air. He was rocket ships to the moon. The DNC speech was basically the same thing, But it came across as Josh has a persona that he projects. I love him. He's going to be a future president, I think. But it was just a tiny bit disappointing because it was similar to his previous nominating speech in Pennsylvania. That's an honest comment. So maybe I heard it wrong. Maybe you disagree with me. It just was the same old, same old. Bill Clinton, President Clinton. The first thing you could say is, wow, I'm getting old after seeing Bill Clinton. He's getting old. He even said that in his speech. Boy, I'm getting older, aren't I? Or words to that effect. But he became the older statesman. And you could see it. It is the DNC speech that's a little slower, a little more hesitating with his words, but that charm, that down-home country manner. So I thought President Clinton's speech was excellent and what it should be for a former president who is older and still beloved by people who follow him. Hillary Clinton. Now, Hillary Clinton, I did not listen to. I just realized that today, that I didn't get to hear the speech. But I did read yesterday after I went to or watched the DNC convention, and I heard she did a great job. I know she's a good speaker. I can't give you a personal opinion on it, but from what everyone has told me and everything I've read, she did a great job. Pete Buttigieg. Mayor Pete was great. I enjoy Pete. I think he's got the package. His looks, the youth, the background, the ability to speak, the ability to connect with people. I just see, unfortunately, the other side disparaging him for a sexual orientation, which is a shame because Pete is a star. Adam Kinzinger, Republican. You know, Adam brought it up before he started his speech that this is awkward. And he would never expect himself being at a DNC convention. And he was right. It was awkward seeing him as a Republican there. But after about a half a minute to a minute, Adam felt comfortable. Adam represented what a lot of Republicans were afraid to say, that their party has morphed into something disgusting over the past decade or so. Adam did a solid job conveying how he feels about his Republican Party. I want to personally shake his hand and say thank you for putting country over party. All right, it's time to move into the superstars, or at least what I thought were superstars. Michelle Obama. First Lady Michelle, now we get into some of the wow speeches that stood out head and shoulders above all the other speeches. Everyone wants Michelle to run for president. She keeps saying no. But she can damn talk. She can fire up a room, create energy. We all understand now after hearing that speech at the DNC and any time she does speak why people feel about her the way they feel. She is a respected woman and citizen of this country, and anybody who talks down about her, shame on you. Barack Obama. Barack freaking Obama. There are no words that will do the description justice about President Obama. He is clearly one of the best speakers of all time. I feel one of the best presidents. But he just moves a room. He locks people in. He creates a picture, paints the story, and on a scale of 1 to 10 of speakers, he is a 100. 100. President Obama gives speeches that you remember, that touch deep inside your heart and soul. For me, it's always a privilege and a pleasure to listen when he gives a speech. All right, listeners, this brings me to Tim Walz. I'm going to be honest. Don't hate the messenger. These are my opinions. When I saw the choices before the announcement was made for VP, Josh Shapiro was obvious. Mark Kelly was obvious. Tim Walz was okay, I guess. I didn't know a lot about him. Heard him speak once. I said he could speak. I just didn't think he was a great speaker. But okay. It was still Shapiro and Mark Kelly for me. The best way to describe my feelings for Tim's speech, I want to apologize for any doubts I had about him. Down to earth, genuine, the neighbor next door, your favorite uncle, in comparison to J.D. Dumbass, it's night and day. What a great choice by Kamala Harris. A fantastic choice. And I'm not saying that to say we're going to win and yeah. No, I'm saying this is a perfect pairing of Harris and Waltz. And look at what his son and daughter and wife were doing in the crowd while he was speaking. His son going, "That's my dad." And everyone crying. And to admit it, I was tearing up a little bit. Tim did a magnificent job. I was proud that he was picked as the VP, and I'm hoping everyone who's listening feels the same as I do. And I need to add, when you think of a VP, to me, you think, is this person not just there as a figurehead, but if anything, God forbid, happens to the president, can he take over as president? Well, think of people like Joe Biden, yes, to Barack Obama. Dan Quayle, no. Mike Pence, I don't like his policies, but yeah, he would be capable. Tim Waltz, I have confidence in. I didn't think I would say that, but yeah, I could see if anything happened to Kamala for whatever reason, Tim could easily step in and be sort of like a Harry Truman type. I'm not saying is Harry Truman, but you could see that down-to-earth, genuine connection with America. All right, this leads me to what this convention was about, the Democratic nominee for president, Kamala Harris. Let me give you a preface to my thoughts about Kamala. I was a supporter of Bernie Sanders, and what the DNC did to him to prevent him from getting the nomination was incredibly wrong, which led to Joe Biden getting the nomination. I wasn't against Joe. My next choice after Bernie would have been Elizabeth Warren, but that's me, one person's opinion. My feelings of Kamala at the time were she's intelligent, but a little annoying. She went after Joe and they butted heads. And when she was picked as his vice president, I was extremely disappointed. I wanted it to be Elizabeth Warren. I'll be honest with you. That's the point of my podcast. No spin, no BS. Kamala had a problem the first year as vice president. She was all over the place, had some trouble getting her people in place and her staff. That's documented. You could disagree with me, but that's my opinion. She was also criticized, not my words, other people's words, as doing word salad, meaning she'll speak, but they wouldn't be clear her thoughts, and they would jumble together like a big, giant tossed salad. So I listened to her speech at the DNC. I'm going to be very honest with my Wolfpack listeners, and please respect my opinion. I'm standing up right now in my studio. I'm taking my hat off, having a broad smile that's off the charts. Wow. I don't think I expected that or have ever been so impressed with someone's speech as what Kamala Harris delivered at the DNC. First, the contents of the speech were spot on. Her background, what she did as vice president, what she's going to do as president. Wasn't super detailed, but it was enough. What impressed me was the nuance, the delivery, the timing, the changing of the levels of her voice, the genuine, rock-solid, one-to-one connection with everyone in that room and with me and across the world. Kamala Harris is ready, and this is coming from someone who wasn't a big fan of hers. I believe not because I want to stop Donald. I genuinely believe she's ready. She looked presidential. She sounded presidential. Well done, Madam President-to-be. Impressive. So now the next step for Kamala is a debate. Supposedly, we'll get to that in a little while with Donald Trump. I want to share something with you from the past and current to point out something very pertinent to this election. This is about the undecideds and the uncommitted. That's where the voters lie. The base for Donald will be the base. The base for Joe Biden, that's now Kamala and Waltz, will be the base. That's where they are. So it's about the undecideds and the uncommitted, and if the Democratic Party can move some of them to their side to support them. So here's what I want to share with you. Something I remember a long time ago. Remember George W. Bush against Al Gore and their debates? For those of you that do remember, you'll remember what I'm going to tell you next. Those that don't, hear me out. CNN watched one of the debates between Bush and Gore in a room and had people in the room who were undecided and uncommitted at that point in time. This was way back. And after the debate between Gore and Bush, CNN asked, I believe there were 8 or 9 people in the room, undecided, uncommitted, what they thought, and some of the comments were the following. George Bush didn't have the facts. He wasn't very forceful. Vice President Al Gore knew what he was talking about. He looked presidential. And this went right down the line with the people in the room. So basically, after hearing that, you got the sense that Bush sucked and Gore had command as vice president and knew what was going on in the world. And then the key question came from the CNN reporter. I don't remember who it was. He asked, who are you voting for? Down the line, Bush, 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 Gore, Bush, Bush. What the So basically, Gore was presidential, Bush wasn't, but Bush was the type of guy people wanted to hang out with. And that was telling because obviously Bush won the, election very close, controversial because the Supreme Court stepped in, stopped the recount in Florida. And we fast forward to today and the Kamala Harris speech. So CNN did the same thing, 8 people in a room, all of them undecided. Some maybe leaning a little one way or the other. One didn't want to vote for Harris or Trump. She didn't like either one of them. And 5 of them were UAW members, United Auto Workers. Some were related to each other's sister or mother. And that's where we stood. And they interviewed these people after Kamala Harris's acceptance speech at the DNC. Now, remember the Gore-Bush story I just told you? And this is after the speech. And this, for me, was telling because, like I just said, many years ago, you got a snapshot about undecided and uncommitted people and how they would react. So now I was wondering, how would they react to Kamala Harris? And mind you, again, this is a small sampling, but it was a critical snapshot in time, and it shows you, a small snippet. Multiply that by 10,000-fold, and you get a sense of possibly what's going on at the moment. So here we go. The first question from the CNN reporter a couple of days ago to the 8 uncommitted, undecided at the DNC convention in a room after Harris's speech, what grade did you give her? And I'm thinking, oh God, here we go. This is going to tell a lot about people and the country and where they stand. Answer, I gave her a B, I gave her a B+, I gave her an A, etc., and one person said C. So for the most part, A's and B's with one C, and I was surprised. Okay, they went down the room again. What did you like about her? Why did you give her that grade? Well, what did she say that moved you? What did you wish she would do differently? What you gave her, she said she didn't flush out her policy enough was one of the answers. And then the next key question, how many of you in this room have made up their minds after hearing the speech from Kamala Harris? And everyone in the room raised their hand except one person, and I was somewhat surprised. I was surprised at the fact that they all made up their mind except one. The next question was, all right, who are you going to vote for then, for all of you that raised their hand except one? And I'm expecting the good Bush-Gore debate. Kamala did this well, Kamala did that. However, I'm voting for Trump. And the answer to the question of who they're going to vote for, first person, Kamala, next person, Kamala. Down the room, all for Kamala. These are undecided people, uncommitted. And except for 2 people, one person who didn't like either one of them, the lady at the start, same answer at the end. And the guy who gave Kamala a C didn't think she fleshed out her policies enough, and he's going to vote for Trump. So basically 6 for Kamala, 1 for Trump. Now, I was floored by this. This is a tiny, tiny microcosmic sampling. But people, do you know what that means? If only 20 to 30% or higher of the uncommitted, undecided are swinging to Kamala after hearing her at the DNC, after seeing what she's capable of, then that's game, set, and match. That's the election. That's the presidency for the Democrats, and Donald Trump is stopped. I thought that was amazing to see that, and I'm excited about the next 8 weeks. Like I said before, Kamala nails the debate, and this is done. Now, there's some breaking news that you may or may not have read about Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's debate. Before I get to that, I want to ask you a question of all the listeners listening today. If you're listening for the first time, thank you. If you've been listening for several episodes And or from the beginning, are you a member of the wolf pack? And if not, why not? Ladies and gentlemen, it's free. There's no reason to have hundreds of people listening to my podcast, but the majority have not joined the wolf pack. What is the wolf pack? It's the group of people who are the official listeners of this podcast. What do you get? Well, it's free. You're never going to be charged by me for the podcast. In the future, when I do charge, you're going to be a member of the wolf pack. You will not be able to listen to my podcast unless you pay for it in the future. So women, men, all listeners, it's free. And any benefits that I get in the future from sponsors or through other situations, it will be passed along to the official Wolfpack listeners. There's no reason for you, if you're a listener, not to join for free. How do you do it? You send me an email, aworldgonemadpodcast@gmail.com, aworldgonemadpodcast@gmail. Just write Wolfpack. I will send you the link so you could sign up. It takes 10 seconds to sign up. And again, there's no reason if you're a listener not to be an official member. It is free. So the latest breaking news in a nutshell. The Donald Trump campaign cast fresh doubt on September's debate with Harris over a microphone dispute. That's right. And when you hear this twist, former President Donald Trump's campaign is casting fresh doubt on whether the September 10th debate will take place on ABC because, according to one source, he wants the microphones to be muted. That's right, not turned on, muted throughout the debate except for the candidate whose turn it is to speak. Just basically like the first debate with Joe Biden. Trump himself took aim at what he called the bias network, complaining about reporter Jonathan Karl and a panel of Trump haters, and on and on. The Harris campaign, which surprised me, is requesting that ABC and other networks seeking to host the debate in October, possibly, and beyond, keep the microphones on, according to a senior campaign official, marking a change from the June debate when they wanted the microphones muted. So, little convoluted here. So let's basically put this in a nutshell. Trump wants the microphones on, and the reason being is that Trump's handlers prefer, reverse it, I'm sorry, Kamala Harris wants the microphones on. It's so convoluted. And Donald Trump prefers the muted microphone because they don't think their candidate can put presidential actions or words and thoughts in gear for 90 minutes on his own. We suspect Trump's team has not even told their boss about this dispute because it would be too embarrassing to admit they don't think he can handle himself. And Kamala wants it on so she can prosecute all his mistakes. So this is fun. Sorry I got that wrong, but it's so twisty-turvy. Let's see what's going to happen. Who's going to win out, and if there is even going to be a debate. I want to leave you with this. Something that I came across on social media, and this was posted in a Facebook group that I'm part of, and it was from a Republican. And it was a meme, and you know what a meme is. If you don't, it's a photo and image that says something on a colored background or words like a poster that makes a statement. And I'm going to repeat this meme twice for a reason. Okay? Hear me out. This is from a Republican. It stated the following. Listen, if your hatred for one man is greater than your love for our country, you might be part of the problem. I'll repeat it. Listen, if your hatred for one man, Trump, is greater than your love for a country, you might be part of the problem. That was posted from a Republican. And even though I urge my listeners here and beg them on my Facebook group not to engage with the other side because they're just ridiculous, I had to respond to this back. And this is what I answered back on the post to that Republican. I wrote, if your loyalty to one man, Trump, is greater than the love for your country, you are the problem. I'll be back next week with another episode of A World Gone Mad. I'm your host, Jeff Allen Wolf. Stay hopeful.